Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for RWBY Volume 9, Episode 2. I have to straight up just read this because it's so long. Altercation at the Auspicious auction. I never would have remembered that. Like, it wouldn't have been worth it. I would have tried that like 5 times before I got it right. So, Volume 9, Episode 2. Really good start. They actually have the girls kind of be like, all right, we are in a fairy tale. We're within this specific fairy tale. They basically... Blake was just like, here's the whole season. Like, she was just like, this thing happens, and then this thing happens, and then she fought this thing, and then she left through the tree. And I was like, all right, there's the whole season. So she laid it out for us. Blake is like, here is how we're going. They establish it, of course. I think it was towards the end of the episode was when they do it, where we actually end up seeing Weiss try to do the same thing RWBY did, where it's like, all right, well, there's the tree. There's like the big tree over the land. I'll go this way. And then, of course, she goes through the cycle, and then it doesn't happen. She even hits herself with a rock, which I thought was even funnier than what RWBY was doing. So the way they handled the episode, I thought was really well done. Unfortunately, another 17 minutes. It's just that it's been so long. It's like killing me that we're getting these 17-minute episodes off the start. So it's just like, dang, I really wish we were getting just obviously much longer episodes. We always have, I think for years, have always wanted the longer episodes, and then we get hit with like the short stuff. It's still nothing. What was that? Volume 1. What was that one episode? It was like 8 minutes. Or there was some episode that's like just dramatically short in that first volume, and I'll never forget. It was like, it basically was like 5 minutes long or something insanely ridiculous. And it was like, we waited a week for that for 5 minutes. It wasn't 5, but it was definitely like, I think it was only like 8 minutes or 10 minutes or something wild. I forgot which episode, but it was definitely volume 1. And it was like, this is the shortest thing in the universe. But 17 minutes is much better. So I like what we got to see. They kind of went through. We got to see the start of them kind of going through and seeing all the other characters kind of within the world. We have a bunch of little kind of, basically they're all like board game pieces and stuff like that. They look a lot like sort of Playmobil type toys. Obviously the wooden guards and stuff like that on their horses, which can also cry. I thought that was a really funny sequence when RWBY was telling that story, and then all the guards are crying, and then like the one dude is like talking to his horse, and then if you look at the horses are actually have like little tears welling up, and I was like, that's actually really funny. So I like that part. But I like what they did with the episode. It was unfortunately like I didn't know how fast it would start. It was very obvious that the whole point of this season is RWBY's going to go through some really tough stuff. And this episode, it already kicked off where she was like going through, and it was like, you know, you have to pick an item that kind of calls to you, and then you kind of pay whatever the guy offers. It's not really money, but it's just different stuff. They kicked that off real sad too. It was like, okay, you have Yang, and it was like, you know, what does it mean to be loved? It was kind of hard that she didn't have that, because I'm like, she does have a sister and a dad still. Like, I know that she loves her mom, and like that's a whole story, but I was like, for her to not be able to be like, this is what it means to be loved, like in any regard, I was like, that's a little weird to me personally, but I kind of understood where it's coming from, like a little bit, because of the hardship she felt. But at the same time, I'm like, she still had her dad, and she still has a sister, and they obviously talk about, even Weiss references it, where it's like, it's about time. Obviously she has Blake, but they don't really touch. I thought they were gonna kind of reference that a little bit in that scene as well, where she kind of looked that way, and then Blake will kind of look at her and then not be able to say what she wants to say in that moment still, which I think we're all just waiting for. It was a lot like the Nora thing, where it was like, look, we know how she feels. We know how Ren feels. Why haven't they already done this thing? Like, by the time they finally kissed, I did a whole rant on that episode, I remember. And I was like, they should have kissed like a full season before that. Like, it meant nothing to me that they finally kissed, because I was like, I thought they were together the whole season. I thought that was the point of them having the argument, was that we didn't actually see them together, but they were officially together, and apparently they weren't. So at this point, it's all right. We waited a super long time for that obvious thing. Now we're waiting a super long time for this obvious thing. I hope they finally do it. It's like Jean's semblance. He needs to have his semblance. We need to just see Yang and Blake be like, hey, we're together. Let them kiss. It's not like anybody's shipping it, and we're just waiting. It's like, it's obvious. They've liked each other for 10 effing years is what it feels like. So not to go into that super long rant, but I hope that happens too. I'm tired of waiting for Jean. I'm tired of waiting for this relationship. Like, just, they killed a dude together. Let it happen. Just let them kiss. Let it be done, please. But they had that moment. I thought it was interesting. Of course, they go into the next thing with RWBY, where it was like, you have to fill this jar with hope. And she's just like, dang, I'm out of that. Like, it was just like a bunch of tragic stuff. Where it's like, the gang doesn't know how to be loved. RWBY doesn't know how to hope. It was like, this is effing sad. But of course, things end up going super crazy, because the mouse grabs, I think he ends up grabbing the puppet, which I think that was a very clear reference. It was a puppet, obviously, you know, painting being a puppet and a robot, stuff like that, and her blades actually being on strings. So the whole Pinocchio thing, I think that was a clear reference to that. And obviously it was green as well. So it was a lot of clear references to that. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting that it was so insanely connected to exactly everything that references Penny, like the blade, all that stuff. I was like, that might as well have just been like plucked directly from Penny. It was very interesting how closely aligned all that stuff really was. So I like the way it was handled for sure. And then of course, it was funny when they reveal exactly what was going on, where it's like, oh, he changes all the items into something random. I didn't think that the puppet was actually going to end up being just a mouse. So I was surprised, but I guess the puppet was the mouse, and then there was something else. The third item, I guess, was or no, whatever the little bunny, I guess it was a mouse. It looked like a ceramic rabbit at first. I guess that was just a ceramic mouse. And so that of course turned into the mouse. The puppet turned into the blade. So I like the way that was handled. And I was like, oh, I didn't think he would just turn like people and things into items as well. So that was funny. And then of course, at the end, after all of that said and done, the little Playmobil dude walks up to him. He's like, and he's like, I want my hug back. And I just thought that was so funny. I don't know why, but I thought that was a really funny sequence where I'm like, it's a currency, and in a sense, it's a great currency. They even say it, I think. And I was just like, that was really funny to me though. When the dude was like, give me my hug back. And I just thought that was really funny. But I like what they did with this episode. Still wish it was longer, because they, at the very least, they went through kind of having their options kind of laid out for them, where it's like, hey, we should probably, in a sense, follow the story, but at the same time, let's not 100% follow it, because, you know, they say Alex is her name. She started a full-on battle, which I imagine is exactly what's still going to happen, regardless of how they try to go with it or avoid it. It's almost like a fate sort of situation. So I think that's what we should expect. I would imagine that the young girl that wakes up on the beach, she will officially be Alex. I could easily be wrong about that, but I would imagine, especially with the way that they have the opening where she's in front of the rest of the team, I think they're gonna kind of help her along with her being the actual character of the story, and they have to get out by helping her do what she's meant to do from the storybook. So I'm excited to see, you know, when we officially get to that point in the storyline. I would hope it's next episode, because I feel like once she comes into play, that's when things are really going to pick up, because these first two episodes have really just been the team and them being like, okay, this is where we are, this is kind of what we need to do, so maybe we should go against it, maybe we should follow it. Of course, by the end is like, hey, we tried going against it, obviously it didn't really work, we did exactly what was going to happen in the story anyway. What if we just go along with it and try to make it a simpler version of the story and not go into, you know, the insane war? So we're gonna get to who is basically like the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland, except he's, you know, like the young prince. So I'm excited to see what we get from the next episode. It could easily be like the really chaotic one, so I'm excited to see where that's headed for sure. But I definitely enjoyed this one. I'd say I like this one more than the last one, and part of that was probably the fact that they at least went through the explanation of the story. And like I said, you know, Blake pretty much laid out the whole season for us, even though that's, once again, that's also in the opening, where it's like clearly they go through the different lands. But she kind of laid it all out, and it kind of gives us time to think like, all right, well, what parts will they follow? What parts won't they follow? Because they all read that story, you know, as kids. So everyone knows where they are right now. And I was like, okay, that's actually very cool. It's a lot like, oh man, I forgot what the mini series that they used to have were, the World of Remnant series. So it's definitely like they know that story and now they're living within it. And it's like, all right, let's see what they follow, what don't they follow, what do they kind of follow? You know, there's variations of everything. And then obviously you have Neo coming in. Is she going to end up playing the part of villains from the story? Is she going to be her own villain? There's a lot to that as well. So things are still really up in the air. So I'm excited to see how they change things around. But I definitely enjoyed this one more than the last episode, because I felt like there was much more forward momentum with them giving the explanation of the story, them truly understanding where they are and what may or may not happen and what they may or may not have to go through in order to escape by the end. So I like the way it was handled. I'm looking forward to next season, or sorry, next week, next episode. I'm looking forward to next season. You know, to be honest, ahead of time, I'm looking forward to the next season. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happened to Jean officially, what happened with Neo, what is the deal with like the silhouettes behind her, what is she going to be doing with that? So still a buttload of questions. We only got 10 episodes, unless I was mistaken about that when I read it before, which I guess I can check now. Nope, 10 episodes. So we're ending on April 22nd. So we only got 8 more episodes to go. So I'm excited to see really the length of these other episodes as well. Like they can obviously do a lot in 10, even if it's 10, 17-minute episodes, they can technically still go through a lot. But I imagine at some point there's always like just that long episode, like the finale typically is, but there's always that episode, like kind of the mid-season finale sort of deal, where it's like the super long one, like, all right, here's like the wild thing that's about to happen. And so I'm sure at some point we'll have like one of those crazy episodes for sure. But looking forward to where we're going in this season. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Of course, the whole thing with RWBY is that it's full of theories, what can and cannot happen. Excuse me. Once again, we'd love to know what you guys think is going to end up playing out. Especially in the next episode. How are they going to deal with, you know, the young prince? When will they eventually meet Cheshire? Because I'm trying to remember as far as Alice in Wonderland goes, because obviously that's kind of what they're referencing, like a little bit. There's a lot of different things put together. Obviously that's all of RWBY is a bunch of fairy tales put together. So they're definitely doing like kind of the Alice in Wonderland thing where they're going to meet the kid. Like even in the opening, it's like clearly he's kind of like the Red Queen. So I'm curious how that's going to play out for sure. But we'd love to know your theories and thoughts on everything so far in these last 2 episodes and where you guys think we're headed. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.